so today we're going to learn about Jimmy Carter. It was the 1970s. What just happened with our presidencies?
Nixon resigned.
Very good. Nixon resigns the presidency, the whole Watergate scandal. So this outsider, Jimmy Carter, is going to run for president in 1976. And he's running on the idea that he's going to clean up Washington. And he's going to create this informal presidency here to kind of showcase he's not above you. He's one of us. Right? He's one of us. He was a peanut farmer before he was governor of Georgia. Also, probably one of our smartest presidents, graduated from the Naval Academy. Right. So what are some of the things that he did to create this informal presidency to kind of showcase he's one of us? Don't call me Mr. President. Call me Jimmy. Right? Gets rid of the hail to the chief whenever you walk in the room. I'm just like you. I don't need a theme song, right? So you don't need to play the song. Instead of wearing the tie, I'm going to wear a sweater. Pretty sweet, right? He's going to do a fireside chat like FDR with the TV this time instead of the radio, and talk to you with an actual fire in the background. So he's really trying to connect to the average American, and it's definitely a refreshing after the first. After dealing with Watergate. And in the early years of his presidency, he's going to do a totally new mindset, kind of a world-first foreign policy. Instead of doing massive retaliation or détente or flexible response, he's going to say, we need to do, everything we're going to do is what's best for the world, not what's best for America. Totally different than today's mindset, right? And what's best for the world, he was saying that we need all foreign powers, all these wealthy empires of old, like the United States, need to allow the developing countries to grow on their own without the dominance of the imperialist nation, including the United States, to showcase that his action was not just words, not just rhetoric, but he believed it. He actually gives up the Panama Canal. From the beginning of the year, we were talking about the Panama Canal with Teddy Roosevelt, and Teddy probably would have been turning over in his grave. Remember, he stole it fair and square. But Carter was saying, you know what? This is something that we don't need this resource, but for Panama, this is the only thing that they really have in terms of a moneymaker, where we have such great natural resources. We don't need it for our economy. They do. I'm going to give back control of the Panama Canal to the Panamanians, and hope that other world powers will do the same with their possessions. And do you think the other countries are really going to do that?
Nah.
No, not right away anyway. But here's Carter signing away, giving up the Panama Canal. So we talked, you had an assignment this week, class, with the Camp David Accords. He's early on pretty successful. Again, look, no tie there, right? We're going with a polo shirt here. Jimmy, right? But then things are going to get ugly in 1979 for Jimmy Carter. So things are going to start falling apart. First of all, we have the Russians are in Afghanistan in 1979. Oh no, Russia attacks Afghanistan. Now, if this was Eisenhower, bang, we bomb Moscow, right? If this was Nixon, they don't. We're going to sit down and talk with them ahead of time. Flexible response, Kennedy, maybe he would negotiate like the Cuban Missile Crisis. What's his view? World first. I just said it. Right, world first.
My bad,
so
I'm sorry.
He's not going to send troops in like a Truman would have done with Korea. He's not going to bomb Moscow. He's going to try to find peaceful ways, peaceful alternatives. And again, this is right after the Vietnam War. We don't want to go to war because Russia is in Afghanistan. So he's going to find other non-military ways to send a message to Russia to knock it off. So some of the things that he does the no SALT II. SALT. Right? SALT was with Nixon, the strategic arms limitation talks were reducing nuclear weapons. He says, look, you guys aren't talking peace anymore, so we're not going to negotiate more reduction of nukes until you pull out of Afghanistan. We're not going to sell them wheat. right? That's the number one commodity that the Soviet Union buys from the United States. We're not going to sell it to you until you pull out of Afghanistan. In 1980, the Summer Olympics were in Moscow. We're not going to go until you pull out of Afghanistan. So the good news is he's not using military tactics or military action. He's finding peaceful ways to send a message. The negative of this, though, is some unintended consequences. People who you don't want to hurt are not going to be hurt. Who does this hurt? Not selling wheat.
All the farmers.
The farmers, right. And in the 1980s, we have the really beginning of farmers, small farmers really struggling. You may have heard a concert called Farm Aid that happens every year. They've been doing it for 30 years now. These are trying to help the small farmers who lost business from the not being able to sell wheat and really continue to struggle because of that. They never recuperated from that. Who's this going to hurt? The Olympics.
Everyone.
Right? Not just the pageantry of the average American enjoying it, but can you imagine if you were an Olympic athlete who trained your whole life to go to the Olympics? The Olympics are never supposed to be political. It's supposed to be, a celebration of countries, and now you can't go because your president told you no. So it's honorable. Carter, as you'll hear, is probably one of the nicest persons or people that we've ever had as president. Super nice guy, but struggled in some of his decisions when we get down to it. So you have Russians in Afghanistan. You also have the other part of 1979, the Ayatollah in Iran. Ayatollah in Iran, Russian in Afghanistan. Wheel of Fortune, Saturday, heavy metal, suicide, foreign benefit. So we didn't start the fire. So the Ayatollah in Iran in 1979, the Shah, who is our guy, we supported the Shah, he was the leader of Iran, gets overthrown by the Ayatollah. The Shah believed in equality between men and women in Iran. And that upset the more fundamentalist viewpoint of the Ayatollah and other leaders in Iran. So they overthrow the Shah. They didn't believe it was right that men and women should be eating at the same table. They didn't believe it was right that men and women were walking in the same spot. Women are supposed to be walking 3 feet behind the men. They didn't believe it was right that women were not covered with the hijab. That they should be able to. The Shah believed that they should be treated as equals. So they overthrow him. He escapes. He has cancer. He asks Jimmy, can I come to the United States for treatment? What does Jimmy say?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? World first. Yeah, I'm all about love. Come on, give me a hug. Right? So he comes to the United States. That is so upsetting to the Ayatollah that they will decide to attack the U.S. Embassy in Iran and take 52 Americans hostages and say, we are not letting go of those hostages until you give us the Shah. We want the Shah. We want the Shah. Uh-oh. Now, if you give them the Shah, that means you negotiate with terrorists, and therefore that would encourage more acts of terror. So you can't do that, right? Mm-hmm. So now it's 1979 and it's going into 1980 and it's in the news every day as people are looking at the Shah, how many days go that the Americans are kept and held hostage in Iran. Day 100, day 200, day 250, day 300, and still no release of the hostages. The Shah dies. And still no release of the hostages. I always think they should have just pretended that the Shah oh yeah, we'll give you the Shah. Oh, he just died. Okay, we'll take that. The Shah dies. They still don't get any hostages. We don't get the hostages back. He tries a rescue mission. 8 Marines are killed during the maneuvering or practicing of this rescue mission. And again, it's not Carter's fault, but the American people are starting to question Jimmy here, that he is incapable of getting the hostages back. They will finally be released 444 days. That's over a year. They are held in Iran until January 20th, 1981. Carter is going to lose the election in 1980 to Ronald Reagan. He is still negotiating. He gets them. He's the one who negotiates their freedom, not Reagan. Third, but the Ayatollah, just as a final slap in the face to Jimmy, waits until Reagan is president. So they are on the plane. The hostages are on the plane on January 20th, waiting to get the go-ahead for the plane to take off. And he waited until he heard news that Reagan had been sworn in. 33 minutes into Reagan's presidency, they take off.
Oh my God.
Yeah, poor Jimmy. Yeah. So that's his foreign policy. The last storyline is the domestic side of this. Oh no. So the domestic side is he has to deal with something called stagflation. Stagflation is high unemployment and high inflation. The economy is stuck. It is stagnant. That's why it's called stagflation. High unemployment and high inflations. It starts with because of OPEC. OPEC is the Middle East countries. It stands for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. They are countries that are selling oil, petroleum, to the United States. Well, for years, we've been successful in having them compete with each other. So we were getting gas real cheap, 25 cents a gallon. Suddenly,
That's not bad.
they create this cartel, like a monopoly, and they're now selling it together. So they're not competing with each other anymore. And gas prices triple. So they go from 25 cents a gallon to 75 cents a gallon. Oh no, not 75 cents.
That's
but again,
still cheap, though.
but imagine in our world going from $2 a gallon to $6 a gallon. Your salary doesn't go up, right? Your job, all the other things like, in terms of like food and shipping food around the country. Well, someone's got to pay for the gasoline, for the shipping costs, heating your homes. This price of oil triples, yet nothing else is staying the same. So that's why we're dealing with stagflation. And the problem with Jimmy is he could try to fix the unemployment, because what happened, companies are trying to trim costs wherever they can. So unemployment hits about where it is right now, actually, with the quarantine. It's around 12%. Quarantine is actually a little worse now, they're saying. But it's at 12%. So he could be like FDR and create jobs, right? Like the New Deal program, start creating government jobs. But the problem is these jobs are not necessary. These jobs are not going to be paid for by the American people. It's going to be paid for by the government. So if he fixes that, more inflation, right? So the wasted spending, prices of goods are going to go up if he tries to fix unemployment. Okay, let's try to fix inflation. Well, if you try to fix inflation, you want to cut wasted spending. You want to go and try to figure out where can the government save money, where can businesses save money, and what's going to happen if you do that?
Unemployment goes up.
Unemployment goes up. Right, so we're stuck, and if he tries to fix one thing, the other thing's going to get worse. So he decides he's going to take 10 days off and listen to all sorts of people from all around the country to give him suggestions on what to do. Imagine if Trump did that. He's like, for the next 10 days, I'm going to just I need to think. That's what Jimmy's going to do. For 10 days, he's going to hear from economic experts, from labor union presidents, from everyday workers. People are going to come from all around the country and give him kind of their take on everything. And then he's going to go on TV after the 10 days to tell you what the solution is, what he's learned. And what has he learned? He basically gives what today we call the malaise speech. He says the country is in a malaise, that the country's kind of stuck here. But in the speech, guess who he blames? You.
Us.
That's right. You know what the problem is?
All y'all.
Yes. It is your fault that the country is not doing well. Because we have no, as he said, he's from Georgia, confidence. And he kept going like this, confidence. We have a crisis of confidence. Confidence is not just something you dust off on the 4th of July, as he would say. And his point was that it's because things are bad in the economy because no one has faith in the economy. Once you start having faith in the economy and you start spending money, we'll get out of this. But the way it came off was like, it's not my fault as the leader, as the president. It's your fault. All y'all are terrible, and you need to fix this. How's that going to work?
Not well.
Not well, right? So here's Jimmy. 1979 is like one of the worst years for the country. You had the Ayatollah in Iran, Russians in Afghanistan, and you had the economy falls apart. All of that happens, and for Jimmy in 1980, it's an election year
Yikes.
in 1980, so he's got to run for president on the struggles. In comes Ronald Reagan, who runs on a campaign slogan of, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" And by the way, Trump is not new. Look at the slogan.
No.
Let's make America great again.
Ooh.
La Magda. La Magda.
Little Magda.
Yeah, so Trump, total, make America great again. Right.
Is he now keeping America great?
Yeah, now it's keeping America. So anyway, Reagan gives this slogan, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" So incumbents usually win re-election. 70% of our incumbents win re-election. But Jimmy will not, because everything is going poorly at the worst time. Even though he's a very nice man and really does a lot of good for the country and was trying, everything kind of fell apart for him in 1979 and into 1980. And that's why Ronald Reagan will win the next presidency. All right, so that's it for today. Tune in for Ronald Reagan next week when we hear more of we didn't start the fire. Ayatollah in Iran.